Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Welcome back to my channel. I am here for day 9 of Ethany's 31 Days of Tarot 2020, which I've been really enjoying doing so far. I will leave all of the tags in the box below so that you can find the other channels that are participating this year. And in the case of the general tag, anyone who's participated ever before, since this is quite a few years running for the 31 Days of Tarot. So the prompt for day 9 is to share a memorable reading from the last year, from 2019. And if you watch my channel, you will probably know that I very predominantly read for myself. I do sometimes give a reading for friends or family members or people that I know, but I don't read professionally or anything like that. Really, very, very much so, mostly for myself. So I wanted to share a reading that I did for myself that was memorable for me for a number of reasons. And inevitably, readings for ourselves, I think, are, often quite personal or emotionally affecting in various kinds of ways. So I am only sharing the components of this that are, that are comfortable for me, obviously. I think that's important. I don't think any of the prompts, that the intention is to, push people to, share things that are too personal or that they don't feel entirely comfortable with. So that's always a good, a good parameter to stick within. So my memorable reading for 2019 that I want to talk about is the reading that I did for myself at the autumn equinox. So in September, so not that long ago. And something that was memorable about this reading for me is that it was the first time that I had ever worked with one of my newer oracle decks, which is the Dreamtime Reading Cards by Laura Bowen. And I love both of Laura Bowen's decks very much, even though they're quite new to me. So this one, my first reading, was just towards the end of September. And normally when I get a new deck, I will maybe work with it at first with a deck interview spread or a daily draws for a while, just drawing single cards to get a feel for the deck and for the guidebook if I'm going to work with that. But in the case of the Dreamtime Reading Cards, I had already worked with Laura Bowen's other deck, the Saltwater Reading Cards, and I had really connected with those very quickly and love that deck very much. So once I got the Dreamtime Reading Cards, I went just straight into a reading with them, and they had arrived, and I had looked through them and leafed through the guidebook a bit, but I just decided to incorporate them right into my autumn equinox spread because I knew, I would be able to work with them right out of the box, so to speak. So in the context of a tarot reading for myself with, a lot more cards than just this, I incorporated them as kind of additional cards, right? So I had included 3 of them after having read with several more than that tarot cards, and I was working with Steampunk Tarot, which is another deck I love. And so 3 of the spread positions, and this was a spread that, forgive me, I do not remember where I found. I think I kind of combined a couple of different equinox or Mabon spreads that I had come across to make them kind of work for me and, combine tarot and oracle in a way that worked for me. But if this sounds like a spread that you authored, please absolutely let me know and I will, give credit accordingly. So anyway, I did this much larger tarot spread, and then I included 3 oracle cards that I drew from the Dreamtime Reading Cards. And the 3 spread positions that I drew from this deck for were: how can I best honor and respect the earth? How can I best honor and respect my relationships with others? And how can I best honor and respect myself? And I had 1 Dreamtime Reading Cards for each. And this deck, I just lost it, honestly. There was aspects of the broader tarot reading that absolutely had a lot to do with this, but the reading that I had was just really I don't know, it was what I needed at the time. It was so clear, and, working with this deck for the first time and having that kind of experience, I feel like doesn't happen often, or at least doesn't happen often for me anyway. So it was really affecting in that way as well. So when I asked how can I best honor the earth, I received this card, Walkabout, bare feet. And so in Laura's guidebook, she has a write-up for each card. And I just want to share a little bit about each card that I chose. So for how can I best honor the earth, I got this card, Walkabout. And in the book, Laura explains that in some parts of Australia, the term walkabout refers to a rite of passage for a young man. But for her, in her experience as an Indigenous person in Australia, that the term is used by elders to describe the connection they had to the land and kind of meditative walks that they took with the land, and generally in bare feet, right? So something that Laura writes about this is, quote, "When we allow ourselves to feel the energy that vibrates up through the earth, we allow ourselves to connect to the ancient energy of this great land. I consider this to be in some ways part of our responsibility. If you do not walk the country that you live on and allow it the opportunity to speak or the chance for your environment to communicate what it needs, then how are you to know what it is that is needed from you?" And so I had asked, how to best honor and respect the earth and the clarity, of this. And this was at autumn equinox, so in September, which, where I live is a time when the seasons are, it's getting colder, and I really struggle with cold weather. In the winter, I'm indoors as much as I can be. My body really doesn't react well. And I struggle with my health in that context as well. And so at this time where, it's getting colder and it's getting a little bit, it's still very much, fine to be outside in September here, but it's getting colder and it's getting harder for me, and I'm getting that anxiety about knowing that cold that, is really hard for me is coming, having this reminder to listen, and to kind of feel into the environment that you're on, and to listen to that and keep that connection felt really appropriate and important at that time for me. And so when I asked, how can I best honor and respect my relationships, I got a creature that I'd never heard of, actually, so I had to look up a little bit, and I got goanna. Self-preservation. How can I best honor and respect my relationship with others? Self-preservation. And I know, and I think I've spoken about this in other videos, that I can struggle with, boundaries around things like emotional labor and, caring labor and things like this that is difficult to manage, that we have limited capacities for, but want to give boundlessly to the people that we care about, and that's a really difficult thing to navigate, particularly when people around us, or people that we love, are going through like really hard times, and I had been dealing with that as well. And so asking how to respect and honor my relationships, and having this reminder, that self-preservation is a part of that. And the text of the guidebook talks about how the goanna, which is a type of monitor lizard that are very large, they shed their skin, but they do it really gradually as they grow. And so it has very strong skin, the goanna. So that's its connection to self-preservation. And the end of the message in the text for the guidebook that goes with this deck is that it's, quote, "It's time to be very clear about your personal boundaries and what you feel is right for you to be doing at this time. When you have drawn the goanna, it is time to protect and value yourself and make wise decisions based on what is best for you. Do not be afraid to say no." And so thinking about how, honoring yourself and being, giving myself permission to say that I don't have capacity for things, or that I can't be present for things all the time, as an answer to the question of how to best honor my relationships was a really, I don't know, it was an intense answer for me at the time. And I kind of felt like, yeah, it was a good kind of reminder that in order to be able to, be present and be supportive for people and be a good partner, and be a good friend and be a good, relative and comrade and ally and like all of these things, that having, the personal boundaries that are necessary to be able to do those things in a good way is so important, right? That self-care, and I need this reminder a lot, and that I think is partly why it was also like quite an affecting reading, was that, being reminded that self-care and taking time for yourself and taking space for yourself to recharge and kind of check in with yourself and connect with yourself is not a thing that like, self-care is not a thing that's like at the expense of care for others, if that makes sense, right? It's not an either or. It's not something that means that you're, stepping away from others in a neglectful way by taking time for yourself. And I need to remind myself of that. And it's something that's really hard for me to remind myself of. So having that was really special. And then when I asked how I could best honor and respect myself, the card that I received was the Firefly. Searching. And I do know we have fireflies where I live too. So, this one is more easy for me to picture than like the goanna, which I didn't really know what it was. But I thought about fireflies, as this kind of spark of light in the darkness that you see, like when you're camping or out in the forest or just like out walking where I live, you see them. And so thinking about then the word like searching, like they're these kind of little sparks, little sparks in the night that you can't like, see your way by necessarily, it's not like it's a flashlight or something, but they're these little kind of hints, like hints of directionality or something like that. But I went to, of course, the guidebook, and the guidebook for these decks are so great, both of them. And I looked at the Firefly, and something that Laura talks about the Firefly is that the light has to do with the fireflies looking for a mate, right? That it's the fireflies are illuminating themselves to attract a mate. And so the book talks about the idea that the firefly can relate to, the desire to find someone to be with, or to find companionship, or, loving relationships of various sorts. But that, and then Laura Bowen writes, you want to find your other half, the one who you believe will make you whole. But first you need to appreciate the beauty within yourself. You need to set your own soul on fire before you can hope to see that love reflected in another. It may feel as if you're looking for something that seems unobtainable, but there is a light in the darkness for you. You need to keep going. Find your spark, shine your own light, and eventually you will find what you are looking for. So in the context of a question about how to, honor and respect myself, after just having a card that emphasized the importance of taking care of myself and setting good boundaries in my relationship with other people, here is kind of like felt like a second reminder of, yes, relationships with other people are important, and relationships with the people around you are important, but what makes you happy? Like, what within yourself makes you happy? What are you passionate about inside yourself, and where does that come from, and how do you tap into that, and how do you actualize that? And that's what I took this as prompting me to think about, and think about those things in a lens of honoring and respecting myself by acknowledging and respecting those things, the inner fire type things. So I felt like with those three cards, in response to those three questions, in the context of a broader tarot reading that was like a lot in all kinds of ways, independently of that, And this being my first ever time working with the Dreamtime Reading Cards, like brand new out of the box, this reading was an intense one, and it was a very much a memorable reading for me in 2019 at the autumn equinox time. So that is my memorable reading for 2019. One of the videos wherein I've gotten a little more personal than usual, but there it is. I'm interested to hear others' stories about their memorable readings from the year, and look forward to talking about maybe what makes a particular reading stand out as memorable for you all. And yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you back here tomorrow for day 10, where we're going to talk about long lost decks we want to connect with in our collection. So looking forward to continuing on with the 31 days of Tarot 2020. Thank you again for watching, and have a great day. Bye.